In today's video, we're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that are preventing you from using your skills and turning them into a $10,000 per month business. Because here's the thing, a lot of the things that you think are going to help you make money, specifically if you have a creator business like creating content and things of that nature, actually cause you to lose and miss out on money. So I'm going to share some things that are going to be a little bit counterintuitive to you, but they're going to help you make more money because you're going to eliminate these mistakes that usually keep most people stuck, only making a couple $1,000s a month when they could be making 10 to 20K per month or more. And I know this works because I've fixed these mistakes with dozens of clients and helped people get to that 10K per month mark in as fast as 60 days. So this first mistake is based on an idea that's actually promoted heavily in sort of the creator economy, and it's something you've been told to do, but it's actually keeping you broke. And so that mistake is believing this myth that content is king, right? So this idea that content is king, that if you just create a lot of content, it's going to translate into money. And while it's true that content does lead to making money, it's only true if you do it in a specific way. So the biggest mistake people make is that they create content, but it's not actually attached to a product or service, right? So if you're creating content, all of those views that you're getting, all of those likes that you're getting, all that engagement you're getting, if you have nothing to sell them, then you cannot make money. And this sounds like an obvious statement, but a lot of people will go online and they'll start creating content about their skill set, which is great, but they don't actually sell anything. They don't have an offer. They don't have a product. And so what happens if you do it this way is you're going to build an audience and you're going to be talking about your skill set, which people might value, but because you don't actually have anything to sell, well, they're going to get really hyped up by the things that you're talking about and they're going to get excited about it. And then they're going to go buy from your competitors because you've actually exposed the problem that they want solved, but then you don't have an offer that's going to solve it. So they're going to go find someone who actually has an offer that can solve the problem. And what's going to happen is when you're creating a bunch of free content, posting free value for your audience, you're going to put yourself in the friend zone. You're going to create content without selling. So if you create content without selling long enough, it trains your audience to not want to buy from you because you've now established a more friendly frame versus the frame that you're actually running a business and that you're selling stuff. So creating content without an offer is a mistake. I'd rather you go take your skills, package them into a product that you could sell, turn it into a high ticket offer, right? You want to charge 3, 5, 10 grand. We have several videos on this channel that talk about how to build the offer, but you want to actually have an offer because if you're creating content that doesn't have an offer attached to it, many times you are building a staircase to nowhere. I've seen it happen so many times at this point that it's just something I have to reiterate constantly. I've seen people, they have thousands of followers on social media. They have thousands of people on their email list, but they never sell anything and they're wondering why they're not making money when they quite literally don't have a product. And so what'll happen is if you're in this position, you're going to trick yourself into thinking that at the next stage of your growth, you're going to finally launch a product. When you get to 10,000 subscribers, that's when you're going to launch. When you get to 10K followers, that's when you're going to launch. And I've seen people kick this can down the road, I kid you not, all the way up to hundreds of thousands of followers. There are currently people with hundreds of thousands of followers who are poor, who can barely get by because they don't have an offer. And so you trying to solve the problem of not having an offer by creating more content does not solve the problem. It just builds a bigger audience that you're going to struggle to monetize. So you should be very careful and consider what you're actually going to sell before you really invest a lot of time and energy into creating content. And so this next mistake that people make is they get part of the logic right when it comes to making offers, but then they build the wrong offer. So we're going to talk about what kind of offer you should not build if you want to make $10,000 a month. So this next mistake is something I see happen over and over again in this sort of creator economy that we're living in. And it seems like a good idea, but when you actually run the numbers behind it, it makes no sense. And so the next mistake is that when you are selling a product, you should not sell what is called a low ticket offer first. So what do I mean by a low ticket offer? A low ticket offer is a product that you price at a very low price, right? So for example, it could be a $5 ebook, it could be a $47 mini course, it could be a $100 product, right? And the reason why it's a bad idea to sell low ticket products is because you don't have enough distribution for the math to make sense for you to sell a low ticket product. So if you want to make money the right way, you should start with a high ticket product and then sell low ticket products last. So a lot of creators get it in their head where I'm just gonna create a bunch of different things. I actually call it Gumroad ebook hell, right? So there's this site called Gumroad where you can build ebooks, you can sell digital products. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, where there's some creator out there and they have literally a dozen plus little $5 Gumroad ebooks, and the collective sales of them are like $1,000 a month. And it's because they don't actually have the distribution in order to sell lots of copies of it. And because they're creating a bunch of different products, all those products are just equally mediocre, right? So it's the same concept I see even with like traffic. A lot of people think they should create on a lot of different platforms to try to get more reach. But if you're not good at creating content on one platform, you're not gonna be able to grow an audience on any of them. So trying to do all that stuff at once is a bad idea. And it just goes to this whole thinking in people's minds of, if I just do so many different things at once, multiple income streams, multiple products, multiple platforms, multiple little tiny chunks of money that's gonna accumulate together, it's gonna pan out. What actually happens is that you don't make much money at all. You get burnt out creating products that people don't wanna pay a lot of money for, and then you end up never hitting your income goals. So I actually went through this myself. I've done what you're about to do. I've sold $100,000 worth of Amazon Kindle books, but they each were like $5 at a time. So I had to build a pretty significant audience in order to do so. I made $500,000 writing articles on Medium, and that was great, but it was this sort of royalty model where I had to write a lot of articles to make the money. So all of these different models, like I was basically stuck between like 10 and 20K a month. And that was with a sizable audience. I have 120,000 followers on Medium. I had tens of thousands of people on my email list and still using low ticket products. It was a really tough road to making income. So if you are someone who doesn't have distribution, it doesn't make sense for you to create low ticket products. You should create high ticket instead. And then this next mistake is very related to what I just talked about, but it's something you also want to really critically avoid if you want to make money online and hit your income goals. So this next mistake is over complicating your marketing. It is something that I see particularly with beginner business owners where they literally try to do too many things, right? You have 19 different lead magnets. You want to create a free email course. You want to do free workshops. You want to do ads. You want to be on all these different platforms. All of this is completely unnecessary, right? So Robert Greene actually calls this marketing tactical hell, right? So marketing tactical hell is where you try a bunch of different marketing strategies at once, but since you're doing so many different things at the same time, it gets hard for you to tell which ones are even working anyways. And again, your energy is diffused and diluted across all of these different platforms, all of these different strategies, all of these different marketing tactics. So what you should do is you should have one offer sold to one type of person, and you should use one primary place to get that traffic. This is if you're under 10 grand a month, right? So when you're at 30, 40, 50K a month, then in order to get to 100K plus per month, you might have to diversify your traffic sources. But even then, not necessarily so. But like if you're under 10K a month, one avatar, one offer, one platform is all you need. And in terms of the model, you can just use the model I teach, the words to dollars model, where you get on this platform where your customers are, your dream customers are. You create offer-based content, meaning that you create content about problems and pain points that your audience is experiencing that is related to the offer you sell. You have conversations with people who engage with your content, and then you get those people onto calls where you can close them as clients. And those are the only things you need to do. And it's very interesting. Even when it starts to work, you'll still want to get shiny object syndrome. So prime example, one of my clients, we got her to 10 grand a month in 60 days, but she started going in the school community and asking different questions. She's like, should I get a coaching certification? Should I start looking at what my competitors are doing? And so we had to help her put blinders on. It's like, no, the way you make more money with your marketing is to take the existing marketing that you're already doing and just do it more, do it better, right? So if you're converting by sending 25 messages a day, send 50. If you are having an influx of clients, you can raise your prices. If you're doing really well on one platform, getting more traffic, continue to quadruple down so you can get exponential gains on all of that stuff, right? So one of the things that is the most counterintuitive thing that I could tell you about marketing is that good marketing and good strategy, it's deceptively simple. You're gonna get more results by doing fewer things, by being in fewer places, by having fewer techniques. You don't need the lead magnets. You don't need to do all the free workshops. Offer-based content, messages, sales, deliver for clients, show social proof with those clients, repeat. That's all you need to do to get to 10 grand a month. And so the mistakes I've mentioned so far are really actually a product of this next mistake, which is sort of a psychological mistake that's gonna prevent you from hitting 10K. So none of the things things I talked about are gonna work unless you overcome this next mistake. And that mistake is waiting to feel ready. It's the concept of something else needing to occur before you're finally gonna take action on your business. You just tell yourself, I need to just watch one more course. I need to read one more book. I need to look at one more module. I need to tweak my offer a little bit more. I need to perfect my landing page. I need to get my about page right. There's all procrastination tactics. And you're making the mistake of thinking yourself into getting ready. It's just a common psychological human mistake. You cannot think yourself into the feeling of readiness. The way that you feel ready is to perform an action in a state where you do not feel ready. Realize that after you took that action, that you in fact didn't die, that you're okay. And that actually gives you confidence to go out there and do it again. And so what I'll tell people often is, instead of like, what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate the feeling of nervousness and anxiety because you feel like there's something wrong with you, when instead you should realize that those things are totally normal. And it's like, what if I get on a sales call and I'm nervous? Well, my question to you is, what's wrong with you being nervous? What if I send out outreach messages and I'm feeling anxiety? My question for you is, what's wrong with feeling anxiety? See, like, have you ever thought to question that those emotions are totally normal and that there's nothing wrong with you for feeling them? And that there in fact is no reason why you cannot perform an action in a state of nervousness and in a state of anxiety. Like, there's no rule that says you have to feel perfectly confident before performing an action. And that's the best part about, especially having a system. You can just do the things. Like, you can send a DM and not feel great about it, right? So sending a DM is just taking a message, typing onto a keyboard and hitting a button and sending it to someone else. You don't have to feel great. The very first sales calls I ever took, I was super nervous. I remember I would used to sit in the Zoom room and like wait for them to show up. And secretly, I didn't want them to show up. Like, I was so nervous. I was relieved sometimes when I had no shows for my sales calls. I was actually relieved. I'm like, thank God they didn't show up, right? But eventually I did get on calls, and some of my first calls were nervous. I did, in fact, fumble clients that I otherwise would have signed if my sales skills were better. I did have a lot of anxiety, but I realized it's okay. And to be fair, it didn't take that many times to do those sales calls before I got comfortable, right? And so in many of my cases, or in many cases with my clients, they'll actually get a lot of sales calls and they won't close very many of them in the beginning because they're too nervous and they're too anxious. But getting those, let's say 10 sales calls out of the way, sets the runway up for them to get profitable fast. And so it's that whole concept of ripping the Band-Aid, right? So if you rip a Band-Aid real slow, it's gonna hurt. But if you just yank it off, then it's just off. So a lot of these things, getting on sales calls, sending outreach messages particularly, is a ripping the Band-Aid sort of skill. Putting content out there, worrying about what people will think. If you rip the Band-Aid on all those things, and it's honestly like a 30-day window of you kind of feeling like crap and feeling anxious and nervous. If you just kind of do that stuff for 30 days straight, pretty much the rest of it it's gonna be fine. I've seen it happen over and over with my clients. It'll happen with you too. So stop waiting to feel ready and start doing the things that are required of you to build a business. So the final mistake that's gonna prevent you from hitting $10,000 a month with your business is thinking that it has to be slow, right? So you even hear the term get rich quick scheme, right? It's a psychological operation designed for you to believe that it is somehow bad or wrong, or that you should feel guilty for accumulating large sums of cash in small amounts of time. But if you actually have an offer that solves a problem that's worth a lot of money to other people, and you are just aggressive about facilitating the growth of that business, you can make money very quickly. And the thing about it is, the thing you're having to unlearn is all of this societal programming that trains you that everything must be slow. Like I'm almost a conspiracy theorist in this way, where I feel like the way society is orchestrated, it's to train you to move as slow as possible. You have to wait in traffic with everyone else when they get off of work. You have to wait an hour for your dentist appointment, or you have to wait for the DMV. You have to go through all this arbitrary red tape. The people who you talk to on a customer service line make you go on hold. It's like everything is just slow. You have to wait once a year for your 3% cost of living to match pace with inflation raise at your job. You have to wait for you to accumulate enough PTO for you to finally take 2 weeks off and actually enjoy your life. Like, they're training you to move at a turtle's pace because it's how they keep you in line. Because if everyone simultaneously decided to act with speed and decisiveness and to do the things that they actually wanted to do with their life, the fabric of society itself would crumble. They're telling you that you need to be slow because they want you to be a cog in their machine. And if you want to break out of it, you have to realize that money actually likes speed. Money rewards people who are decisive. And so sometimes it feels a little bit unbelievable to do so, but you can build a business. I'm not saying you could build a gigantic business, but you can build a business fast, because if you think about it, the things required of you to build the business don't take a long time. It's all the time that you spend waiting to feel ready. It's all the times where you know what things need to be done and you don't do them. That's what creates all the time associated with building a business. It's not the tasks themselves. If you had a $5,000 offer and from day one you sent out 100 outreach messages per day, it would be weird for you not to make $10,000 in a month. But people don't operate that way because it's unnatural. Nobody tells you that you could just build an offer and start reaching out to people like mad and signing deals, because everything else is, you're just taught to be slow. And so I actually had one of my clients, we got her to 20 grand a month in 6 months, right? And so she reached out, we were having conversations, like, so she's like a one-on-one client of mine, so we're allowed to text. My one-on-one clients can text me when they need anything. And she texted me the other day and she was like, I kind of feel like a fraud. She was like, I didn't expect it to be this easy, and it somehow feels like wrong that I was able to do this so fast. And that's because that's that societal programming in her head that trained her that everything has to be slow, right? She rose up the ranks in corporate, she went to school, she got a master's degree, she did all these, so it's just slow. These slow, arbitrary, needless steps that the traditional architecture of society and the education system and the employment world just force you to go through for no reason, trains you to believe that things must be slow. But things can happen very quickly and they can materialize very quickly if you decide to move with urgency and action. So those are the 5 mistakes that are going to prevent you from hitting 10,000 a month. And if you simply avoid or do the opposite of those mistakes, then you can make a lot of money. So in terms of what you need to actually do to make the money, you need to build an offer. And so what you should do is watch this video about how to create a $5,000 offer in under 7 minutes. So it's a video that walks you through exactly what you need to do to build your first offer. And that's going to fill in all the gaps and the details that I didn't cover in this video about how to do exactly that. So go check out that video. It should be in front of your screen somewhere, and I will see you on that one.